Hello, everyone, and welcome to Phoenix Gaming. I'm your host, Nick Henning, and we're going to run the Dune Imperium Grand Semifinals today. So, none of these players are Dune Uprising players. I know a handful of them have a fair amount of experience with Dune Imperium. I'm kind of in the same boat. So, if you want to see someone who knows a lot about this game, you can check out the official footage over on the WSBG channel, where Paul Denon, the designer of the game, weighs in along with Chris George. I think it's pretty great. If you want to watch it here, where I'm walking at 25% speed and getting, of course, kind of the natural insights that we give over here, then you're in the right spot. Cliff's in seat one here and is going to lead off with a Fremen exploration. I know that's oftentimes a big push for people to get those sandworms in Uprising here. Looks like he almost forgets to move up on the track there. I don't think it's something that they would hold people to, but he draws a card and then decides whether he wants to push in a troop and agrees, yeah, might as well go for it. Looks like first, second, and third here are getting an intrigue card. So I think a spec troop here seems entirely reasonable. Obviously a little annoying to put the troop in and get nothing for it, but this is a little ventured, little lost kind of situation. And the difference of a couple bucks here to push in really heavy maybe is not worth it at this stage. I'm actually not entirely sure. Maybe pushing in two troops is good, but having two folks come in over top of that is a little tough. And I guess it maybe depends on if you have daggers in your hand, which normally I don't think you count the swords too much later in the game, but it's early enough that I think you would. John here in seat number 2 has kind of a nice setup. I know that he's got, I think, the least experience with Dune of the players at the table. Looks like he switches between using a diplomacy and a the allies the one-time diplomacy card that goes away, and switches between them as he chooses kind of for his initial opening here. It's a little bit awkward. I was about to say in seat 2, picking up Muad'Dib. That's kind of sweet because if you have the right deck deal, can go to the Fremen first and second and really unlock those sandworms pretty quickly and make sure you're taking full advantage of Fancy Paul's skill set here. But with John's opening draw here, it looks like that's just not going to be a reality. So he heads into the desert just to start walking up that Fremen track there, and has an opportunity to push up to 3 troops in. So I think that it makes a fair amount of sense for him to come in over top here. One seems like a little bit of a shoot me and Cliff a bit. I think that I would come in maybe for the full 3 here, and fight for either those 3 or 2 coins. That seems like a worthwhile trade to me. But again, I don't have a crazy amount of experience with what the right battles are to contest. But that's where I'd be at myself. Looks like there was also maybe a trash card there. I actually couldn't see if he did end up trashing anything and moved to the side, but I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe tossed a dagger or a dune or just maybe didn't toss anything at all. Third seat here, it looks like RJ is playing as Gurney. He's going to lead off right off the bat with the ring here. Get extra troops with is that Eric Keen? I want to say it's Eric Keen. And he says, you know what, if you guys are going to push 3 troops in, I'm absolutely happy to. It's really interesting to see the players kind of go for this aggressive push early in terms of the troops, because of course if you can come in later in the round, you kind of get to decide exactly what the value is worth. But it does also maybe scare other folks off. And so seeing that Cliff and John are not leaning in, I think that RJ makes the right call to push in 3. Heading out over here to Eric Keen. Alan comes in. I can't quite see what cards, of course, that he's playing, but presumably with a Dune card. And he says, I'll also throw a guy in if we end up tying, so be it. And this is kind of the tension I was talking about. We were just putting him 1. It sort of makes it that everyone's kind of doing this weird stare down of each other. It depends a lot on who's got daggers in hand, who doesn't have daggers in hand. If you tie, you kind of end up in a situation where I think this is an unfriendly ties game where things go a little bit ugly for folks along the way. Looks like they give RJ his troop for Gurney's ring, I think, is what that was, because clearly they're playing a little bit looser and kinder with the rules given the lack of experience around the table, which I think makes a lot of sense here. Taking a look at the card row, which we're not quite at yet, there's a couple interesting choices out here. I don't think any of these are insane, but they work really well with other cards. Like I know Captured Mentat is kind of a funky card depending on if you have sort of those like discard synergies, but it can get really, really powerful. But even just its base power is, I think, a pretty solid one. Spy Network automatically getting you a spy in play seems like a nice version of getting yourself a silver, a Pave the Way, or whatever the Bene Gesserit card is. Starter card coordination does, I think, some very fun surprise combat situations, as well as getting you the Emperor. Desert Power is pretty expensive. I don't know that folks are going to be able to get there. And then Guild Envoy here is actually pretty good. I think earlier in the game, you don't really have a lot of faction access, and it's got essentially a full wild faction access. So some good choices for our players all around. Cliff heads up north to the council seat or whatever it's called. That's going to get him an intrigue card as well as a persuasion. Hopefully I don't call it coins, but yeah, the coins are Solari. I'll get that right. But persuasion, which will help him sway these cards at the top here. Looks like he's still debating something. Oh, he played a ring, and so of course with Lady Margot here, he gets to dump a spy into play. Looks like he's going to head over to Arakeen and the Spice Depot. Is that what that's called? I'm showing my... I understand the places in this game, but I'm showing my lack of experience without knowing the titles of just about anything. So we're going to see how that goes. Here's where our Seek Allies is. I did remember one of the names of the cards. And John will just go ahead and scoop up some extra water. I think that seems like a fine choice. I'm actually not sure what the current contracts are. I'm looking around the board trying to see. Maybe they actually haven't put the contracts into play, because I'm seeing some gaps there, although maybe they have it off to the side of the board or it's blocked by one of these player videos. But I was about to say that I think considering what contracts are available might have earned an Empire nod. And certainly the intrigue cards, I think, for the Bene Gesserit are worthwhile as well. Getting a second water is nice for Paul, though, who's going to be spending a lot of time in the desert. So I think that's a very respectable choice. We'll have a diplomat come out here and decide essentially the same thing that we were just talking about a moment ago. And RJ is going to say, I will take the Bene Gesserit and the intrigue card here. It also goes well with the Pave the Way or whatever that Bene Gesserit 2 persuasion card is that you can buy. So if you don't have an Emperor plan, that kind of might be the better way to approach it. Alan, being the only player who has picked up any spice, happily gets to wander into the Spice Depot, and he's sort of done this, I'm just avoiding what everyone else is doing. It looks like he maybe didn't have any faction access in his hand to start off with, which I think is going to work out really well for him, because it looks like the other players did have a lot of their faction access early. And so he's going to have a little bit of an easier time next turn, even going third, heading to the spaces that he probably wants to go to. He also even kind of makes a cold shot here for Bene Gesserit by placing a spy out there, which I assume has something to do with the leader that he took, and then he used a ring. Is that Stabin Tuick? Who else? Oh no, Fade maybe? I'm trying to think of who gives spies on a ring play. If he's playing Stabin Tuick, that'd be pretty wild. I guess we'll know whether he ends up playing a diplomacy card or not at some point. But yeah, we can't see access to his board. We'll have to figure it out somewhere along the way. Looks like we're headed into a reveal round here, where we're just going to get probably a series of reveals in a row. While Cliff is thinking about this, I'm going to look up Staban and see if I'm correct about that. Of course, I just get normal stuff. Uprising. There we go. If you sent an agent this turn. No, it's not him. So it almost certainly is Fade then, right? I think Fade does a spy as your first act. It could be a spy as a first action. So that's my guess, is that Alan is playing Fade Rotha. Looks like Cliff's maybe a little bit broke here, so he's going to pick up the spy network and dump a spy into play. Really good bottom card. And also, if he's kind of broke, that's just the way that it is. And he flips up leadership here, which he goes to read, which is good because I also don't know what leadership does. Uprising card list, huh? Let's find out. Flesh and blood cardless. All right. This doesn't seem to help me out. Someone hooked me up with a spreadsheet somewhere. Let's look up what leadership does. Not ruthless leadership, just regular leadership. For each sandworm you have in the conflict, draw a card. +1 sword for each revealed card that provides one or more swords. Okay, so it's a fighty card that cares about your sandworms. That's fun for our friend Muad'Dib out here. Internet's pretty wonderful sometimes. Really appreciate that. John leans in. He's only got about $2, it looks like, because he scoops up the pave the way. We're going to call it pave the way. You can be mad at me in the comments later. It's fine. Kind of interesting that Cliff actually had such few money, even with a send out there of up to get one persuasion, right? Like he sent out one troop, I think, knowing that the one troop with the 2 daggers was really going to go a pretty far away there, and we see that he did indeed have that support there. Looks like RJ was kind of the opposite side of the spectrum, had a ton of stuff as he picks up Desert Power. Is it Desert Power? I thought it was Desert Power. Yeah, Desert Power. If you send an agent to a maker board space this turn, +2 spice. So he's going to be able to scoop up a bunch of spice. And if he has maker hooks, looks like he can summon a sandworm along the way. So he's going to be looking to contest that Fremen space as well. With the front 3 players looking at Fremen spaces, I can't help but feel like Alan is maybe just going to be moving away from that. Alan picks up a pave the way as well, rather than this reliable informant. Which seems fine. Reliable informant, I guess, is kind of just limited by only really being able to go into the spacing guild. And the bottom ability there is fine, but I think probably not as good as getting that extra persuasion. If Alan's saying to himself, look, the other 3 players here are going to be doing worms, I could certainly see him saying, maybe I'll do a little bit more of a deck building strategy, and reliable informant is not going to help him in that journey. Whole lot of intrigue cards getting passed around here, and John just getting boxed out with a single troop push there. So unfortunately for him, that pretty weak push with no dagger support gets penalized by all of his opponents getting in there with hecka dagger support. Looks like Alan had 2 himself. And I think RJ really is the real winner there as Alan and Cliff bounce off of each other, both with 2 daggers, and don't pick up any money while RJ picks up some cash. So I am kind of liking round 1 most for RJ currently, having picked up a really big card, having won the conflict there, to pick up an extra couple of coins. Alan also has a couple of coins, and so that is kind of a really nice setup for him. I also know that he hasn't used his Seek Allies yet, so he's going to be able to go out and do that. Be curious to see. I think Alan will have the access to two peeps this turn, 2 faction access this turn, so I'll be curious to see if he uses it. Looks like a little Desert Mouse conflict here with some contracts, which of course I still can't see. Maybe they're actually not playing contracts in this tournament. Maybe they did away with contracts and contracts are just straight up 2 coins. That could be the case. Let me pause and find out quickly if that's the WSBG rules. Yeah, it looks like we're playing No Chome in Uprising here, so just $2 for heading to the Emperor space there, which seems like a fine choice, I guess, from a tournament structure perspective, although I really like the contract. I like when a game says, go do a thing, and then you're rewarded for doing a thing. John gets to go first here, and unfortunately for him, he's not going to draw into a way to head out down to the Fremen location, which would really be his dream as Muad'Dib in seat 2 here. I think probably not going to have the support along the way, and so he pushes a bunch of guys in by moving somewhere. Where did you send your guy? How did I miss this? There must be a yellow dude in play somewhere. RJ will happily take the Fremen draw card location. Looks like John is hiding out over there in Arakeen, his yellow blending in naturally with the desert there, sending in a huge number of troops to get essentially a coin, water, and a discard there. It seems like an okay choice. I wonder if he has a mouse as a starting card and is putting a little bit more on that half victory point, becoming a full victory point for that conflict there. RJ is happy to kind of slide in with a couple behind, as the rewards for second and third are pretty good, getting a water along the way here. And Alan is going to start flexing out the aforementioned faction access. There we go. He is picking up another water here. Maybe he is kind of planning on doing a really big spice pickup, because there's going to be some water accumulate or spice accumulating in that triple water location. So I wonder if that's what he's eyeballing, or maybe just some research station visits later. Cliff, actually in seat 1, manages to land with the Fremen agreement as early as he possibly can. That works out really nicely for him. I wonder if he's going to unlock some sandworms, make some use of that along the way. But he can do some really powerful things in the aftermath of that if he gets access to water and ways to push those worms into play as the game goes on. Certainly a really powerful choice. He throws a speculative guy into the battlefield and challenges Alan to do something about it. This is a great position for Cliff to kind of limp in third, because if Alan decides to come in over top, Cliff can come in and over top again and could really end up penalizing Alan. So this is almost like the safest position you can be in to limp into a battle, is seat 4. Just kind of, daring the players in front of you to do something about it. So it might be that he just gets like an easy third place in this conflict, which is, a pretty nice reward. And I was just talking about him needing water for his sandworm shenanigans going forward. John here, unfortunately, with Muad'Dib being a little bit boxed out here, he can't guarantee that he's going to get into the Fremen spaces next turn. RJ, Alan, and Cliff might all be incentivized to block him from that access, and he might have a very, very long time before Muad'Dib gets to do Muad'Dib's stuff. That's a little bit of a bummer for him, so he might have to be thinking about what does a different pivot look like for him. I can't help but wonder if it is doing something financial, getting some Solari and getting in the mix, and that could mean that he picks up some spice right now. There's I'm going to call it Haga Basin because that's what it used to be called, the middle spot. I don't know if it's still called Haga Basin, but the one water desert space, he definitely has the water. He could go there and pick up 3 spice, which he could use at the spice refinery, or just has a couple other ways I think of picking up some water along the way. It's also worth noting that John is already on space 1 of the spacing guild track, and if he gets to space 2, he could convert 3 spice into 5 coins and move up a track, over on the top right, that our Chome friends in the spacing guild. So, it's just another option for him if he feels that he gets kind of locked out of the Fremen sandworm path, to maybe do something up in Chome world. It's a way to get access to the 5 coins he needs for either the council seat or moving his way towards an extra swordsman. No one really is kind of running on coins right now. I think that Alan picked up 4 last turn, RJ picked up 3 last turn, so no one has an obvious coin setup that I think is going to let them do anything big and very powerful. And we see that John indeed goes out here and scoops up the 3 spice. It's going to give him a lot of options about what to do in the future, so we'll see what he winds up deciding with that. He can decide to push more troops in now. I don't know that he necessarily needs to. He sees that there aren't really enough troops for for Cliff. I'm saying Cliff and Flashener at the same time to throw extra troops over top. I mean, maybe he will, but it's pretty expensive, and he knows that Cliff is unlikely to have any daggers in hand, whereas John probably does have multiple daggers in hand. And RJ here doesn't even have troops in the garrison. So I think that John actually is maybe feeling a little burned from last turn, and I think he probably could have greeted that last garrison troop. RJ here rocking the M64 paraphernalia. He is going to be looking to, do some gurney stuff, try to push in, I think it's 3 troops as often as possible, I think Gurney's even nastier if he does unlock Sandworms as well, and RJ is going to be going first next turn. So if he manages to draw into troop access, faction access, he can also be unlocking those worms pretty quickly and doing some exciting stuff with that. He mulls over his options here. I mean, I certainly think that getting some extra coins, like if he picks up 2 extra coins right now, he can start, flexing on guild council seats or find a way to get some extra stuff. So, he can do that either with the Emperor if he's got the faction access, or he's got the signet ring here and can head out to the spice refractory or whatever it is. That's kind of where I'm eyeballing for him. Instead he says I want a persuasion and an intrigue card. He's got his eye on some kind of purchase here. I feel like it's got to be something pretty weak. I mean, maybe even only a 2 because he had such a huge hand last round. So I don't think that he can have that much persuasion available to him. I know he's drawn a card or 2 here or there, and is on. I think he's on a deck reshuffle, but even still, I don't think he can have anything too nutty. I think he's going to be looking at something much weaker. Alan does indeed have his second faction access card and is going to use that probably to pick up an intrigue card here, although I wouldn't have blamed him for picking up the 2 coins along with the 4 from last turn so that he could start getting into either swordsman or... Actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I mean, I actually kind of wonder if I like that more, because if he had gotten the 2 coins up top, he'd be at 6, and then next turn, if he doesn't draw into things that he likes, he could easily get to 8 and then get a swordsman for a turn 3 swordsman. Maybe people don't like doing the early swordsman in this game because you pay 8 while your opponents are paying 6, but seems like a kind of exciting option given how broke most of his opponents are currently. Cliff indeed is going to push into Siege Tabur here, and Siege, and unlock some Maker's Hooks for himself, which is going to make for some really cool stuff going forward. He puts some extra troops in here and says to himself, okay, well, I know that John's going to have... Oh, did John already do a reveal turn? No. Cliff pushed into... He didn't just... I thought that Cliff was debating whether he wanted to push more troops in. He says, I'm happy to keep troops back here. I'm happy to... I like this for him. The 3rd place victory here is just as fine as fighting RJ for 2nd place victory. He'll have a lot of troops. He wants the troops to support his sandworms when he's pushing them in the future to make sure that he's winning those combats or getting those double bonuses as easily as possible. So having a strong garrison later, I think, makes a lot of sense for him. John's going to go ahead and reveal. Looks like he does have a dagger here, so I think that the speculation I made about him burning a dagger on the first turn remains true. And he does go for Desert Power and natural combo with Muad'Dib if he's able to unlock that Fremen access. Oh, nope, he was just reading it. Looks like he's actually got a lot of cash. Looks like maybe 6 or 7 persuasion. I think it's 7. He goes for the captured Mentat, however. I don't know if I like that choice. Maybe it's more powerful in the vacuum. I like the upside that leadership gives him, but I guess he might also just be saying, if I take leadership and I don't pull off worms, I'm just completely cooked and want to leave his options open. I can respect that as well. Strike Fleet is spy placing, both literally when you buy it and in terms of a location where you can go to. Looks like it does shenanigans with making troops as well. Let's take a quick look at Strike Fleet. Find Strike Fleet. If you recall a spy, plus 3 troops. He tries to pick up the Guild Envoy, but looks like he's corrected that he's only got 2 left, and then maybe hits a Pave the Way, or maybe just doesn't hit anything at all. Didn't quite catch it. If he has 7, I have to imagine a Pave the Way makes sense here. Still is probably improving the average quality of his deck, and the Mentat is, not a make my deck super thin card, I think. RJ reveals with a couple daggers, easily locking up 2nd. And this kind of brings to light how I think valuable it was to pay attention to who revealed daggers on the first turn and not. I think RJ flipping none was important probably for Cliff to pay attention to, because he noticed, okay, functionally RJ has 3 troops in play. I don't have any daggers in my hand because he had them all played in the first turn, so I don't want to mess with all these extra bonus points. I can just get away with this 1 troop here, which works out really nicely for him. So far, I would say turn 2 seems like Cliff's favor. I would say that he had the strongest round here, being able to scoop up sandworms on turn 2 from seat 1. I think is quite rare, quite difficult to pull off. I think that it tends to be blocked quite a lot. So if he can do some exciting sandworm things, he's going to do great. If sandworm conflicts end up happening behind the barrier, he might have a little bit of a bummer type game going forward. We'll have to see. RJ does buy the strike fleet and puts a spy into play. I could see this as being an interesting choice for Gurney, because you just always want to be pushing in a bunch of troops along the way. What does it do? And if you reveal it, you reveal a bunch of swords. So it's a pretty confrontational card. He is going to need access to some more spies in the future in order to really take advantage of this strike fleet. It's an interesting choice for him to put it there on the Fremen. It means he can guarantee going to a Fremen spot or draw a card when he goes there. But I have a feeling he wants to go to the Fremen spot next turn. He's not going to draw that strike fleet for a while. Alan doesn't waste any time at all buying the starter card Coordination. Let me just make sure I remember this card correctly. I'm not confusing it with some Dune Imperium card. You may deploy any troops you recruit this turn into the conflict. So it turns any space essentially into a sword space, which makes a lot of sense for that Sardaukar action spot up on the Emperor's track there. Looks like we're determining the results of the trash cards and everything like that for the folks who are winning these conflicts. John, I think, having already trashed a dagger, might end up trashing a Dune Desert Planet instead. It can be very dangerous, I think, to go down to 0 daggers, because then you're reliant on the Signet Ring to head up into the green zone, which you don't want to, often or every turn, but you want to here and there. It's a tough choice. But maybe just dumping both the daggers and leaning on the Signet Ring isn't bad, knowing that he'll probably be playing on the map a lot. The problem that John is facing right now, I think, for the cards that he's taken is he doesn't have a ton of faction access either. So he's going to be a little bit stymied. He's going to be doing a lot of blue stuff throughout the course of this game, and I think might end up getting boxed out just from the deck building side. We'll have to see. Looks like Cliff trashes something. He's playing some kind of intrigue card that lets him blow something up. He's saying, I don't want leadership. Why doesn't he want leadership? Doesn't it have something to do with worms? For each sandworm, draw a card. Interesting. Maybe he wants to disincentivize other people from doing worms. I think that Spacing Guild's favorite card is quite good if he's got the cash for it. But instead, looks like he wound up scooping up something else. Maybe he didn't have sufficient persuasion. It's too bad I don't know the intrigue cards well enough to see if I can figure out from this intrigue list. Oh, there's too many words. There's too many words. We see the shenanigans. We're good. And we get our kind of first true track clogger, the Unswerving Loyalty here. We also have kind of our first big bomb, Long Live the Fighters, here coming out. Big old Fremen nonsense. Remind me what Long Live the Fighters does when you play it. If your deck has 3 or more cards, look at the top 3 cards, draw 1, discard 1, and trash 1. So a really good, powerful deck cycler. It doesn't seem completely nuts. The bottom of that reveal is pretty good, though. And I guess every once in a while you're going to want to do it. Cycling through your deck when you have a couple good cards. Yeah, I mean, it seems good, of course. But as a 7, I'm comparing it to like Lady Jessica or something like that, I guess. All right, I missed what RJ pulled out of his pile there. I'm just going to guess dagger. Cliff gets a troop and a water. And we are off to the next round, I believe. Yep. Like I said, I think that Cliff looks like he's the one that kind of had the best situation in turn 2. I'm still really liking RJ's position. He's going to almost certainly get access to worms if he wants it this turn. He's got a couple coins, so he can kind of go that way. If he wants to, he's put a couple of good cards into his deck. His cards are very confrontational, though. He's definitely very much looking for combat along the way there. This conflict here looks like it's a spend some spice to get a victory point conflict. That is really interesting because it means that a lot of the players at the table are just actually not going to be capable of taking advantage of that reward. RJ does indeed do the Fremen thing that we talked about. He goes to draw a card, which means he's going to reshuffle his deck. If he played his most powerful cards last round, this is certainly a little bit more exciting. We know he played the ring, but however, his diplomacy now is going to be stuck out of play. So he's going to be away from the tracks for a little while. And, reshuffling with that is something that I think should be heavily considered. Looks like he wasn't quite sure about whether he put that in or not because he pointed and looked at the judge. So I do sort of wonder if he should have gone to the other Fremen spot and trashed something from his discard pile while he had a lot of options of things to trash. Again, without really being able to see his hand or his discard pile, I don't know that that's the right choice, but something that I would consider. And he pushes a speculative troop in here, essentially saying, look, if this troop manages to get third place, it refunds itself and comes back with a spice along the way here. Alan's got a card pulled out of his hand. I think he's got it figured out, but looks like he flips an intrigue card as well. And plays a Dune Desert Planet to move up. Maybe this is like a discard move up a track or something like that. But he gets in the Fremen game using an intrigue card, looks like. And then I'm guessing he's going to the other spot. He also wants to be allies with the Fremen, put some pressure on that spot, prevent John from getting in there. That's my guess. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure why you reveal that right now. Looks like he doesn't have the right kind of faction access. He's got the Sardaukor coordination. He'll pick up a couple coins instead. It could be that he was doing it for some other reason without knowing exactly what card he played to move up the track. It's a bit of a curious reveal. I don't think he had too many intrigue cards in hand that he needs to be worried about the Bene Gesserit doing nonsense. Cliff has a ring here, and he says, I'm gonna get Wormy up in here, and goes for this full-on conflict here, grabbing some spice along the way, which he will be able to turn to a victory point if he wins, but he's not going to have enough additional spice, and unfortunately, this basin was plundered last round, so not access to a lot of spice. Oh, this is an ore, so he actually is devoid of spice. I think he's hoping to get second place here. Second or third place, even. That seems fine, but like second place here would be, he spent a water, gets 2 water, 2 spice, and 2 troops. Okay, I guess that seems reasonable, but a little awkward if he ends up not being in that place. I don't know that he needed to rush this spot either. No one else, I think, is terribly incentivized to go to this location. But maybe I'm not quite sure how to play worms in this game. I'll be curious to see how this pans out for him. I guess worst case scenario, if he's first, it's 2 track bumps. It doesn't seem too bad. I see that he's got a lot of convincing arguments, and oh no, that's his discard pile. So was going to say that if he had a lot of convincing arguments, he might just have very limited options and wants to make sure that he gets at least something along the way. John again took a snap turn, and his stealth yellow guys are he went and got some water and moved up the Spacing Guild track, which is going to let him get a whole bunch of coins, I guess. But he's not doing the Moi Deep thing. And he would have maybe had the opportunity to do so. Yeah, he played Diplomacy. That's very, very interesting. We see a Desert Power play by RJ. I think that might have been the card that he shuffled into his deck and just drew. So that's pretty monster draw, and is going to pick up a huge pile of spice all of a sudden from a spot that had just 2 spice, but I guess it's going to be a total of 4 spice, which is a great get for him. Alan heads out, gets himself a couple extra coins. This looks like he's moving into swordsman territory. I don't think he's going to be able to get it this turn because he didn't go for that money last turn. Might have been a limitation of cards, or really he valued the other. Oh, no. He had to, he wanted to use his faction access. I think that's fair. Oh, but the faction access last turn could have been the 2 coins. Yeah, I think Alan might have missed out on an opportunity on a turn 3 swordsman, and he might be going for just a turn 4 swordsman instead. It's not a huge difference, but seems a little inefficient to me if that is indeed what he's headed for. We'll see. Alan pushes in 2 troops, which I think Cliff might just be okay with. He doesn't, I think, really need to fight this. He's happy to pick up an intrigue card from the Bene Gesserits and move up towards that half victory point towards a full victory point on the Bene Gesserit track. I think it's generally good to get those intrigue cards drawn early if you're planning on drawing them. You can kind of craft your game plan around them. They're sort of the only like really huge surprise you can hit your opponents with. I mean, they might not be doing a good job of tracking your deck, but the intrigues are a full-blown surprise every single time. And John, having said I'm not doing the Fremen stuff as much, drops all of his spice, gets a ton of coins, and is going to move up the Fremen track, allowing him to maybe unlock some Maker's Hooks in the near future. Now, though, we've got some contests for the space. RJ didn't grab it this turn, making sure to use that Desert Power, which I respect and I think is the right choice. But if John grabs those Maker Hooks next turn, it's going to be another delay for RJ in getting in on that game. Although if 3 people are playing Sandworms, that feels pretty good for Alan not playing Sandworms. I have a suspicion that there's just, that if those spaces get choked out, it's really kind of a big problem. And Alan also can choke out those spaces just by grabbing normal spice from them. We get a reveal here from RJ. Don't quite know how much money he has access to here. But I believe, no, the Mentat is with John, who sits up straight as RJ claims the spy there. The spy is really good at being discarded, but I think even just the other cards are really good on it. Is it called Spy? Spy Network? No. It's Spacing Guild's Favor. So when this card is discarded, plus 2 spice. If you play it for faction access, it's draw a card, or not for faction access, but for playing wherever it goes. Looks like it doesn't have a lot of access, actually. But draws a card, and it reveals for persuasion and spend 3 spice to influence with any faction, which is a nice little combo. He's got his Desert Power to get some spice, and now he can just use that spice to influence factions without having to figure anything else out along the way. He replaces that with Mala Pistol, which seems like a big downgrade in terms of quality here, as it turns into just a fine weapon. Seems like a game where we had a lot of good stuff out early, and Alan doesn't agree with me. Alan says, I like drawing cards. Happy to pick up the Mala Pistol. And we flip up Stilgar the Devoted, who I think is kind of a bomb, right? Gives you extra troops from an access, blue access, and also he's the new version of 2 persuasion per Fremen, though you can't really kind of do the same combo with the as you can in base Imperium, because the the pave the way people aren't Fremen, they're Bene Gesserits this time around. So that combo is not as sick as it is lately at Kynes and Dune Imperium. The combo being have many Fremen, score many persuasion. Cliff here debating his options. I thought that the Guild Envoy was going to be a little bit more popular. Other people clearly don't like it as much as I do. There's a reveal here with the Spy Guild guy, and then does Cliff pick up nothing or just pick up Pave the Ways? Looks like he picked up very, very little along the way there. Cliff with the dagger reveal is tied for first with Alan, which I think means they're both going to get second. I imagine that Cliff is completely comfortable with this. Actually, not even just comfortable, maybe preferable to get a pile of resources and make a plan along the way. So I guess ultimately that worm did work out for him. John's debating his options. Looking at his cards here, looks like he maybe has 3 or 4 persuasion available to him and a useless dagger. And suddenly, everyone's garrisons are cleared out except for Cliff. Which I think means that people are going to win some combats much more easily than you might expect. There's not a lot of good systems for putting troops back into the game currently, in terms of, picking up like Stilgar the Devoted or something like that as an example. Gurney is always going to put guys into the game. I think other than that, it's really going to be what people are pushing in round after round. Again, I think this advantages Cliff a little bit. He doesn't have the infrastructure, the coins to do any of the like Council Seat or Swordsman stuff, or Solari, whereas John's kind of rich over there. Alan's definitely rich. RJ's got a couple bucks. But they're also not out the gates super quickly. I still am really liking RJ's position. I think he's picked up a couple powerful cards. Set up for a lot of stuff. We'll have to see how he ends up capitalizing on all of that. Alan's game plan so far, I think, is the one I'm maybe the most concerned about. He's doing a little bit of deck building, doing a little bit of money acquisition, but that's about it. Oh, looks like green came over top here. Yeah, RJ used a card to claim victory. Looks like an intrigue card. Spend a couple spice. That's actually a really great pickup for him. That's a really, really good use of an intrigue card. Puts Cliff and Alan into third place, so knocks them out of water. That move up a track is completely respectable. He does it on the Spacing Guild track. And he has access to spice thanks to the Desert Makers, or the Desert Power. That's pretty sick. Yeah, I think that was a really great sequence for RJ. Right now, he is my frontrunner player, I guess. With Cliff second and John and Alan trailing behind, in my opinion. Clean it up as we go to round 4. Alan's going to lead us off here. And at this stage, I've completely lost track of who's reshuffled. And without being able to see discard piles and stuff like that, I am pretty lost as to who's got what where. But we're going to try our best to keep it in mind. It looks like this is a sandworm protected event. So we're not going to see the same shenanigans this go around. And looks like a battle here that picks up some spice along the way. Yeah, it looks like a battle for some spice. and claim of one of these control sites. I can't tell which one. Looks actually, maybe I can read the text on there. Maybe it says Spice Refinery. We're gonna say it's a Spice Refinery battle, which makes sense, I guess, for Spice. I don't really know if the battles are thematic in that way. I assume. Really interesting choice here. That spot was gone to last turn, so Alan is coming in to pick up a single spice, which means he must have some specific vision in mind of what he's doing with the spice that he has available. I'm really curious to see what that's going to be. He must need it for something because it's definitely a smaller player. Maybe he's just really locked up on his card choices, has to use the Dune Desert Planet here. He does push in a troop, and knowing his opponents are going to have a hard time without generating troops, might just get to limp into some extra spice along the way. But as an opening play, it's definitely a pretty weak shot. Can't entirely see his resources, but just speculating, knowing that he already has some spice available, I believe, from prior turns. Yeah, actually, I really have no idea what he's looking to do. He can, roll this turn a little bit more slowly. I don't think anybody else has 8 coins, and he probably, I think he does have 8 coins if I remember correctly from the preceding turn. So if he is going for Swordsmaster, that's fine. Fascinating. Cliff makes a pretty aggressive play here by moving to Siege Tabur. I don't think that that's so much for him to get a bunch of stuff. I think that is for him to prevent other people from getting Maker's Hooks. He could try to blow up the wall, but chooses not to. I actually wonder if he should be blowing up the wall here, because it doesn't necessarily need that troop. The wall's in the way. He wants to win this conflict. He wants those worms to be useful in the future. But it does feel bad to get a little bit less stuff yourself. But I think this is a block. I think he's explicitly preventing John and RJ from getting in on the worms game. It's an aggressive choice, but I think a wall blow up here seems like a missed opportunity. It costs him 1 troop, right? Because he still gets the water. And he does get to do a bigger push into this conflict here, which I think is a respectable choice. It's going to get in some way to get some coins at Spice Refinery, though it hasn't been a hotly contested spot. Maybe in the mid game the players will go there more, although, if they haven't really been pushing for coins early, I don't see them pushing for coins that much in the mid, because by the time they get anything online, it's just not going to do as much. John gets the ever popular Arkeen location here, or whatever that's called. I'm going to call it Arkeen, but the troop draw card. He debates whether he wants to limp into this conflict or not for some spice. Looks like he's, I can't quite tell from the camera angles, but my sense is that he is eyeballing whether RJ can get in on this fight or not before he decides to limp in. And he says, yeah, it's possible, so I don't want to mess with it. And RJ says, you're right, buddy. I got a strike fleet. And so he has a spy that's looking at the Siege Tabur there. And so he doesn't care. He pops that spy off. Strike Fleet drops him 3 troops, which he's terribly happy about. And he picks up a Maker's Hook himself. So the block that Cliff executed there, only partially effective, although it does prevent RJ from drawing a card as well. RJ's got a whole pile of water there, which is going to allow him to go to that crazy spot that's sitting on so much spice or double worms next turn. He's going to push in a whole army here. Big contest for Cliff. So what looked like maybe like a really easy life for Cliff a second ago turned into something really spicy. We're seeing an intrigue card drop here as well. So RJ is executing a whole plan. Looks like he's dropping a spy somewhere where it's legal, or somewhere where someone else already has a spy. So he's double spying, basically called shot, I think, on headed to Arkeen, or maybe even the Spice Refinery on a future turn, if he needs the coins to just cross over into a certain territory. Although it looks like he only has 1 coin, so maybe that's not really the plan. I think it's probably an Arkeen shot. Here we go. Alan with a Swordmaster. Cliff getting bumped into second place here is pretty painful. That second place reward is definitely pretty weak for 3 troops. Debates his option for a minute. If he comes in over top here, it's expensive. It's expensive to win the flag for maybe not the most exciting option, but conceding it also is bad. Yeah, RJ's definitely put him in a tough position. And I don't know, my guess is that RJ probably also needed the 1 persuasion when he decided to push all of his troops in there. Cliff's not liking his options here, and frankly, I'm not liking them for him. I do want to point out how really horrible everyone's guild access is. We're seeing a whole round of no one heading up to the guild spots there. And I think that's a reflection of the cards that are available to players. I really need someone in the comments to tell me if I'm wrong about this, but I feel like someone was supposed to pick up Guild Envoy just for the actions of being able to kind of move and get those half victory points of moving up the tracks over and over again. Cliff draws the card as he picks up his first coins of the game. I apologize for being so yawny. I've been very busy lately, which is why my video output has severely suffered. He pushes in a 4th troop here. He's got a lot of faith in the swords that he has available in his hand. This is it's an interesting flex because he could have pushed in 2 troops. He can't. RJ, I think, recently reshuffled, so I can't really know what RJ has available to him. So there's a fair amount of confidence, I think, with the daggers he must have in hand there. Seems like it'd be a greedy choice if he doesn't wind up winning the conflict, you know. Johnny here's got 6 coins, which is enough to get a Swordsmaster if he wants to next turn. But he says, you know what? I'm going to get on the deck building game, get 2 coin or 2 persuasion here by getting my guild council seat, which seems entirely fine to me, except for I don't think that his deck super supports this. Seems like his, he's not playing the like Sandworms Mod Deep thing because he kind of got slowed down or boxed out of it. It's definitely getting a little bit later in the game. He can still get at it and still maybe get like one, big conflict somewhere along the way to take advantage of that, but I'm not sure if he's going to be able to buy a Spice Must Flow throughout the course of the game. Part of the tension I think between Sandworms and deck building in this game is that the research station, which draws cards, helps you to get that 9 persuasion for Spice Must Flow, but you also need that water to play for those Sandworms. So I think there's going to be a bit of a tension there. And Cliff's conflict push here just gets stuffed by RJ as he pushes additional troops into Arakeen and says, nope, you know what? I am going to win this battle this turn. I think that for RJ, it must be true that is worth a victory point. Or maybe the both of them have kind of a matched victory point for the half victory point here. Alan here does have the water though, and he goes to the aforementioned research station to draw some cards and re-up his army here. I wonder what he's going to do with all these extra cards in hand. If that's going to be enough for him to buy something pretty spicy here. There's Stilgar and Long Live the Fighters in play. Those might be fun. He's also going to be last to purchase here, so it's a little while before we really see what's going to go on. We're going to see a round of reveals. And, being first to... you could debate whether it's good or bad to be last to reveal here. I think given that the players are probably going to be a little bit on the broker side persuasion-wise, probably it's good. Because if you flip something like decent that costs like 4 or 5, might be that John and RJ can't buy it. Looks like an intrigue card to put a troop in play and maybe do some other shenanigans. I wonder if this allows it to push troops out. I see something about something and getting 3 Solari on that card. Let's see if I can find from 3 Solari. Find 3 Solari. Retreat 2 of your troops plus 3 Solari. That's not what happened. This is a bunch of pay 3 Solaris. I'm not sure. No big pickups on these reveals, it looks like. Our Mentat friend. What does the Mentat do? Remind me. Captured Mentat. -1 influence with a faction to get +1 influence with another faction. I'm not even sure if this is being used. He doesn't have like a cool yo-yo effect, I think, to do with this since he's not kind of at the top of any of the tracks. RJ finally picks up our Envoy friend here. And we flip a Maker Keeper. Rewarding people with Bene Gesserit and Fremen alliances, which pretty much everybody's got, or nearly has. Or friendships, 2 influence. I call them friendships, I guess. There's got to be a more correct term. I know the alliances are the top ones, where you have the circles. Looks like RJ says, I actually want access to the Spacing Guild. I need to head up there at least one time. Get some to spy. And we flip a covert operation. That's a fun one. I think that's, the bottom of that reveal, getting you 2 spies is a pretty spicy option. Or you could head to where a spy is and make opponents discard cards. Nice aggressive choice there. But yeah, I think the passing of the 2 spies is a cool power. Maybe it's too late in the game for that to be exciting. Not that it's late, but it's the end of turn 4, so you're only going to fire things off a couple more times. Alan agrees, though. He wants to see what happens here. And then a Guild Spy on top of it. I know that Guild Spy is like one of the best cards in the game. That is a sick flip. It's going to give him a spy right away, which makes that covert operation a little bit better. And let's read this. Discard a card, draw a card. If you discarded a Spacing Guild card, +1 Intrigue. So that's if you're playing it for its agent ability, and then if you're passing with it, if you acquire the Spicemouth Flow's turn, gain 1 influence with each faction you are spying on. So if you spread out your spies and then you buy a Spicemouth Flow, you do absolutely nutty stuff. And look at this. Alan already has spies on Bene Gesserit and Spacing Guild. Wow, that is an absolute monster flip for him. He can kind of just set up this like big, I'm really focused on firing off this Spicemouth Flow with this guild play on maybe turn. He's going to be able to see where his deck is and manage it a little bit more with his card draws and everything like that. But you can kind of set it up where you're going to have one turn where you're going to draw, almost all of your deck, make sure that's going to happen. And then he gets a bunch of extra moves with it, which is really insane. It's a little bit weird because, naturally a swordsman sort of fights against the deck building strategy because you're using an additional card to play your swordsman out. So I think there's going to be a bit of a tension that is there with the deck building and the swords masters. But even still, that is a huge flip for Alan. I feel like that actually just kind of like essentially generated a game plan out of nowhere. We flip an In High Places, which looks like it's yet another spy based. When you get it, you get to play a spy, get some good faction access there, and rewards you for having multiple Bene Gesserits in play. You can even recall spies for additional persuasion. Ooh, if Alan manages to get this, right, he can recall the 2 spies from the covert for +3 persuasion. That's a nice little 1-2 punch there. Not mad at that. Seeing some debating here over rewards. This must be RJ's spy placement, for winning this conflict. And very appropriately, he uses the spy to spy on his own victory up in the walled area there. Cliff's going first this next turn. He's going to be able to send some sandworms out, so that is certainly an exciting option for him. I think we're now at 4 rounds of that 3 water space accumulating spice. So if anybody's got access to 3 water, eyeballing RJ over here, it might just be collect a whole bunch of spice and figure out a game plan from their time. We see yet another sandworm protected conflict here. This one I think is maybe in Irakeen. It's got coins and troops. This is a bummer for Cliff, and I think is kind of a little bit of a haunting of the wall not getting blown up last turn when he went to the siege, because he's got first to go, but he's not going to have the same crack at the I'm not quite sure what's going on there. Something weird's happening with the shuffling and drawing, it looks like. All right, well, I'm not quite sure what that was, but yeah, but he's not going to be able to kind of push the worm in the most aggressive way here. That definitely hurts. It definitely hurts. He's going to go to the siege. And then he pushes some troops out. So it looks like, again, that's no wall blow up. He's just going to win this fight the good old-fashioned way. This is one where it looks like second place is actually quite good. Looks like first place is good, too. A lot of troop rebates. Don't know that he'll get this one for free. RJ has the capacity, as we've seen last turn, to just get a bunch of troops out of nowhere. And we'll have to see what John and Alan do along the way. Again, John's turn is stymied by the fact that that Cliff has blocked the siege here. So I think he's really kind of put him in a pretty difficult situation. John's going to go ahead and recruit some troops into the garrison here. Along with spending the couple coins that he had to get himself a 3rd water. So now he has access, threatening access to that giant pile of spice along the way. I see actually at the top of John's pile, a spice must flow there. He must have had 9 last turn, and I missed it. Scored a victory point. RJ says, absolutely not. That's far too much spice for me to say no to. And he does it with desert power. So even additional spice here. Now he's got to figure out how he turns just an absolutely stupid amount of spice into victory points. I think it was a little bit easier to convert spice into victory points in the old game. You know, there's the Spending Jesuit spot that Alan's headed to right now. Highliner, I think, is not quite as powerful as it was in Imperium. It still is really good. He's going to be able to win some conflicts just using Highliner and that pile of spice along the way. And it's an additional kind of boon using this with Gurney, as he's just better with that extra persuasion. So it looks like Alan is removing the spy, drawing additional cards, and then dropping the spy again, which is a natural combo here with the Bene Gesserit spy spot. Essentially just cycling that spy forever there. And looks like he is trying to draw into the Guild Spy combo, maybe even this turn on the reshuffle. If he has some water available to him, which I don't think he does because of the research station play last turn, he can try to draw some additional cards as well. I'll say from his face, it didn't communicate to me that he drew Guild Spy, but we'll have to see. Maybe he's just a more professional player than I am. Probably true, given that Alan, I think, has been in the grand finals 2 years in a row. Close debating his options here. It doesn't seem too exciting to head out into the desert. I mean, maybe he could pick up some spice if he wants to. That's not a horrible choice. Looks like he's struggling a little bit with faction access. That would be another option for him, certainly. But yeah, like I said before, like the last round, all the players seem to really struggle with the faction access right now. He doesn't have the coins to do any of the exciting green spots. He sort of has pushed himself into this worm strategy and flipping a couple conflicts that say do worms. Not working out so well. There's the diplomacy. He says I'll pick up some money and I'll eventually need to move up this track anyway. That gets him $6, which is enough for a Swordmaster, although I don't know if his turn 6 Swordmaster feels about right or not. John here with the ring. And he'll scoop up an intrigue and a persuasion. Seemed like he kind of debated that for a while. Wasn't so thrilled with the choice. Kind of surprised if he wasn't sure why maybe he didn't go to Airkeen, push a couple troops into this conflict, pick up some coins that way. An intrigue card here seems fine, but maybe he just really needs that persuasion for something. RJ's going to highliner here and just come in over top of Cliff again, making Cliff's life very difficult. He's deciding whether he needs to push in all 5 or if he can be greedy with 4. Since Cliff is first, he knows that he doesn't have any other shenanigans along the way, so he's got to kind of consider the swords that he has in hand. I guess it's actually entirely plausible for RJ also to just push in 1 or 2, but my guess is that he wants to get in on this, especially with the refund of troops. The worst case scenario is him tying with Cliff. That being said, he seems comfortable enough pushing in 4, thinking that that's going to get him there. I don't think Cliff has a lot of swords in hand as backup. Like, he hasn't bought cards that do that. We see Alan's diplomacy here, letting the Fremen limp him into a 3rd place for a couple coins in this conflict and drawing another card there. Furrowed brow. Yeah, he has a lot of cards in hand. I think there's a decent chance that he's got that guild combo. We'll see. And he did have double guild access this turn. By the way, I do want to point out that he used his spy to go to the Bene Gesserit spot, or the covert operations that we talked about before, to go to the Bene Gesserit spot, since it only has access to where you have spies. So just kind of a natural combo there. And with the lack of guild access, having spy access is probably the next best thing going on here. We see a reveal from Cliff. I guess he did have a lot of daggers. Did he? Oh no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, he just had 1 dagger. He knows he's cooked. We saw him in a fight earlier, and I don't think he's drawn a ton of intrigue cards since then, so it's possible that he's going to come in over top, but I think unlikely. Doesn't have a lot left. Decides he's going to get the Maker thing. Public Spectacle, I know, is a very, very good card, especially if you've got spies in play. So that is a pretty sweet flip for Alan, but might not get to him. And in fact, if Alan's buying a Spice Mount Flow, he might not even look at that Public Spectacle. But the ability to use those spy spots and get some moves on tracks just can do some really nasty, powerful stuff. John here might not be excited about it, though, because he doesn't have access to any spies in play right now. So it kind of requires him to do some setting up to even take advantage of the Public Spectacle. Yeah, it's not for him. We flip up an ecological testing station, which does some research station-y type card drawing stuff. John certainly had the cash for the spectacle, but it didn't catch his eye. So he bought another Bene Gesserit there. So advance on the track here, so that must be that Spicing Guild favor card, as RJ is going to rush for that alliance. And comes in just over top. Wow, with no daggers. Really disciplined choice to put in 4. Pretty brave. But maybe he just did a really good job of tracking what was in Cliff's deck. That's the sign of someone who's really paying attention. And RJ says, I can't let this pass. The public spectacle is mine. And we'll flip the double agent, which seems like it's in the spy theme, but I think it doesn't quite do as much spy-based stuff. +1 spy on the board space you send your agent to this turn. So it leaves a spy behind, actually. So it does do spy stuff, just slowly. Alan here gets another action. Looks like he needs to draw even more cards. So he's short on persuasion somehow, probably. Or his plan is just to draw through his whole deck every turn. Looks like he drew 2 cards. Maybe it was a card he used. Could be a Fade Ratha bonus. Passes all the way back, so we're going to whip around the table back to Alan again, who gets a double last turn of the round, I think. He's going to reveal it all. He's shaking his head, so... a lot of daggers there. 3 or so. Yeah, looks like he falls short. So it looks like he spends 7 for Long Live the Fighters, which is a really good pickup actually now for him, because now the draw 3 cards, pick 1 card essentially allows him to fire off that Guild Spy combo. So a little bit of a whiff for him this turn. I'm not quite sure what the odds are because I don't really know the composition of his deck. But, you know, you can see him shaking his head there. He's not terribly happy with that, but those Long Live the Fighters is definitely a good alternative prize for him there, because he's going to be able to use that to cash in on the combo in the future. RJ here winning another conflict, getting rewarded. Really does seem like this is RJ's game at this stage. I mean, he needs to find a way across the finish line. That's going to be his big challenge, but he's got 1 point available on Bene Gesserit, 1 point available with an alliance with the Spacing Guild. It's not clear whether he's going to get a friendship with the Emperor or not, but that'll put him up to 8 points. So he's kind of looking for 2 other points, and he has a whole pile of spice available for some more Highliner shenanigans throughout the course of the game. So in addition to the access to worms, RJ really is cooking here. Cliff, I think, is probably in the biggest trouble here. He's sitting only at 2 points down there, having picked up almost nothing along the way. He's got a couple points unrealized nearly on the tracks, but he doesn't have access. We flip yet another no sandworm conflict for this battle here. So that wall really doing its job this year, this go around, as we continue to fight inside the city. John here finally is going to get a chance to get some Maker's Hooks if he wants to get at it. A lot less exciting at this stage is, you know, it's almost like, yeah, you might as well, but Muad'Dib's power definitely quite diminished. You know, he also is less likely to get crack at putting a sandworm into play, you know, next turn, because both RJ and Cliff are in front of him. Like, it might be a little bit too late for Paul to lead the Sandworms to victory. We do see that John is sitting at 4 points, but I think that he just seems like he has the weakest position to me. we definitely see that the sandworm power is just kind of unrealized at this stage, which I think is sort of the gamble. I mean, we've seen a lot of wall protected sandworms for the round 2 conflicts. RJ in C3, by the way, can just go into that conflict level 3 with Highliner, kind of the classic strategy. And if no one pressures him on the spice, he doesn't have to go first next turn. Interesting choice for him to head to the Spacing Guild right now. He must really need that water access because if he does do Highliner, he already is going to go to the top of the Spacing Guild anyway. So it might end up with a kind of a wasted track movement. Though maybe he's saying to himself, I'm worried about access. I mean, he does have the Spacing Guild operative or whatever, but if he drew that in addition to his diplomacy, he must not have, because then he would have played it now. So there's a good chance he's going to Highliner next turn. So RJ must be saying, I want these coins or I want this water. Now 6 coins does get him into Swordmaster territory. Maybe he's interested in doing that. Turn 6 pretty late in the game, though, to do that. Alan's going to do the same covert nonsense as last turn. Draw some cards, put it back. That works out really, really nicely as he draws 2 cards off the deck now. And the spice that he picked up earlier in the game really paying a lot of dividends. So a little bit of a smile there. So I think he probably drew into something he actually cared about. And he moves into threat range of alliance with the Bene Gesserit. He's also got a couple of unrealized points with both the Emperor and the Spacing Guild. So I think Alan's position is, victory points wise, is a lot better than it looks like on the board right now. Cliff debating it. Oh, is it a discard? Oh, it's a discard for Alan's covert operation, which is really kind of stuffing everybody else. It's going to make it really hard for other people to buy more Spice Must Flows throughout the course of the game. John included, even with his council seat. Kind of a casual toss out into the basin here. And looks like he's going to scoop up, Cliff's going to scoop up all the spice, seeing that there's no reason to push worms, and he'll say, I'll just take second place. I'll get some water with this. That's fine. It's not thrilling, but it's good value. It's going to suck if other people come in behind him, but at the same time, John's first this turn, Cliff's last this turn, so he can come in over top of anybody behind him who wants to do some shenanigans. So RJ and Alan have to be really cautious about committing to any kind of battles in that way. And RJ might be saying to himself, look, I'm just going to try to win a turn 7 battle here. Level 3 conflict. Makes plenty of sense to me. John is debating his options. He's currently winning this conflict, but he's got to be asking himself, like, how am I scoring any of my other points? So if he could move on the tracks, he's far away. He has like really no unrealized points, right? He's exactly where he needs to be on the front. He's exactly where he needs to be on the Spacing Guild, which was true a couple rounds ago. And he hasn't moved up Emperor. He hasn't moved up Bene Gesserit. So he just has very limited options from there. His Spicing Guild access just gives him kind of some money, up in the top right. That's not helpful. He doesn't need to send more troops in. So that's not terribly helpful. And this Pave the Way is not punching at its high level because, he doesn't have Bene Gesserit access. So I think John's game plan probably, at this stage, it feels like he's the most cooked of everybody. And he's going to push in hard into this conflict. He heads up to Erikeen and says, I really don't want to lose this. I don't know what else I've got going on, but I want to claim this. I think we do know that he has a Desert Mouse from earlier, so we know it's a victory point. RJ here playing the Public Spectacle, which is going to give him movement on track, but it's going to limit his choices to, I think, basically just where that spy is right there. He probably was a little bit disappointed to see John head there maybe a moment ago, as it's going to prevent him from drawing a card. But he will push for that Fremen alliance with that Public Spectacle move there. He draws a card and then is going to debate a troop push. I would imagine at least one going in. Just to test whether Alan's even going to send any troops in. Coming in with 3 is feasible if the persuasion matters for him. You know, Gurney's kind of 3 guys giving him persuasion bonus. But he also might just say it's not worth it. Interestingly, he pushes out 2, which is does Gurney? Let me look up Gurney. Gurney Halleck Uprising. Can't remember if he needs 3 troops or if that's just my mental structure. Of course, that's in a different language. That's not helpful. Reveal turn. If you have 6 or more strength in the conflict. So he must have daggers available to him that are giving that 6 strength. And I'm just saying 3 troops because that is 6 strength. So that's just my mental schema for it. Alan pushing in 2 guys here, getting in the mix, doing exactly the same setup as last turn. He's drawing a card off of the Fremen and pressuring that alliance right there. Doing the Bene Gesserit thing, and he's got yet another action. He's probably just going to kind of do this for the rest of the game. Just draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. See a ring come out for Lady Fenring here. Looks like Cliff's headed, oh, I see, into spacing territory. Gets a couple coins and draws a card. He must be going for a deck reshuffle for some reason. I don't think he's drawing in anything too spicy here. Got a lot of cash sitting around though. Pass from John. No daggers, up to a full 10 strength. And we have 3 troops, 3 tied troop pairs amongst our players here. John's just going to buy a ton of paved ways. He's just trying to build some path, I think, towards Spice Must Flow. Not looking at the board, I think makes sense for that. And I think at this stage I'm of the opinion that John is fully cooked. I think he just doesn't have a path forward from here. RJ coming in with 4, 5, 6, 7, so he's got 3 swords. My guess is that he probably had the strike fleet, which might be enough to get second here. Second here is a big deal because 2 water. It's a lot of flexibility, a lot of play options. Pushing out a crazy amount of sandworms. Getting at the research station. Does cool stuff. He's got enough influence to pick up a Stilgar here. Not enough for a Spice Must Flow though. And we flip Truth Trance. Some more faction access. It's probably too late. I think at this point our card row is officially useless. It's too close to the end of the game. There's nothing there that does enough work. Maybe some really funky situations with ecological testing station where you're like got a lot of water and you're looking to draw the cards that Alan's trying to pull off or something like that, but I don't think so. Alan's got another action here. If he has exactly enough to buy a Spice Must Flow and the Guild Spy in his hand, it can be dangerous to take this action, but he actually is straight up sending 2 Persuasion out to use a Pave the Way or whatever, so he can't be too concerned. And he'll draw more cards, drop some cash, and do some Mentati type stuff, so he's planning on using yet another card to go out and do something this turn. Looks like he's debating his choices. Maybe as an intrigue. Oh no. Oh no. He's just doing his Mentati thing. So now he's gonna play out to starter card spot for the Emperor Point. I think that's primarily the motivation there. I mean, the coins also give him access to maybe more Mentati type spaces. And I know it's not actually the Mentat anymore. They changed it in Uprising. You like return one of your guys from a play, but it's pretty much what it is now. Maybe he rolled it back though and decided that he wanted to do that starter car location instead. Now that I'm looking at it, or maybe the Mentat space makes you move. Maybe that's what it does. It makes you move and do it immediately. Cliff says, actually, Nick, you were wrong about the other thing. I like that spy guy that was in play. Now there's going to be some access to water. Cliff comes into the fight also with 3 daggers, tying him and RJ. That's a tough beat for them. And it is true. Alan does the thing. His Guild Spy fires off and is going to give him 2 full-blown victory points here. And now he's very, very realized and suddenly jumps up to 7 points. And him and RJ are in a dead race for that last influence with the Fremen there. So that means he also got a Spice Must Flow. So yeah, he jumped up from 3 to 7 points this turn. A huge, huge swing. And that's what I was talking about, the positioning and a lot of the unrealized points that were there. This was the turn for it. So he missed last turn, but didn't much matter. He executed exactly the same plan and ran it this turn. Now I think they're done, so he's going to reveal again. We can see John just patiently waiting as he watches everybody else take exciting turns. Curious to see how this will pan out for Cliff. It's entirely possible that he's going to end up in last place. I think he did a lot of worm blocking, but the worms not realizing their full potential in this game. I know that sometimes they can kind of swing the whole thing and really make a big difference here. Alan's 2 troops turned out to be completely wasted. Maybe he was just kind of specking and figured that he really wasn't going to be able to do anything with them in the future, so why not gamble now? But those guys definitely just die on the vine. And we're going to flip a round or a tier 3 conflict as we go into turn 7 here. John's going to get his point for pairing up the little mices there. And I don't know that we're going to see someone score 3 points this turn. It feels like the most likely person to do that is RJ. Alan, I could see scoring 2 with like a Fremen and a Spice Must Flow, but I'm not sure where his last one comes from. But this one looks like it's straight up victory points. And again, we got a worm blocked conflict here. What is that? It's a victory point, the flag. You convert something else into a second victory point, so that might be the way to do it. There's probably, looks like there's enough spice out there that RJ is going to go for highliner and push it all in. 5, 6, 7. And because we were already fighting in a spot that RJ cared about, there was already a troop there. So he's just going to come out of the gate and say, yep, I'm putting 16 strength into this conflict. I am going to be getting that victory point, and maybe that second victory point if I can figure out what it is. Let's see, what do I think this is? This is something that's like a battle for the spice refinery. Do you have battle cards on here? No. These are just real cards. See if I can find Dune Uprising battle cards. Well, no immediate results. Alan went to Air Keen to draw a card, get a troop, which, hey, why not limp in? Maybe we get some spice for a later round. Good tiebreaker. Cliff debates his options a bit and says, I got some diplomacy coming out here. He kind of needs a Bene Gesserit to score that point, but he instead is going to go Fremini, push some troops in, try to get second place. I wonder if he has a card in hand that gets him another Fremen point, and then he's going to try to take away the Fremen alliance or something, because it's a kind of curious choice that he's headed out to here. He has to spend a water for this location. It's unlikely he's going to come over top of RJ, I think, at this stage. But, I think that also it's true that Cliff is pretty much dead. I think we're essentially in a two-player game at this stage. I know that it looks like John is close enough in points, but he just doesn't have anything on the tracks. He doesn't have a way to win these conflicts. Maybe he's going to buy a point from Spice Plus Flow or something like that. But yeah, I just think he's kind of in trouble. So I think we're basically into a heat between RJ and Alan. Can Alan essentially fire off Spiceman's flows faster than RJ can win conflicts when everyone's interested in winning conflicts? John will pick up some spice. Now he's got a whole boat of it. I appreciate that he looks like he's kind of playing for the long game here. I think that makes sense. And he'll push that troop into play. Basically saying, I think that I might be able to fight Alan, who has generally demonstrated a low sword count in his hand reveals of many, many cards. RJ can't really keep fighting here. I mean, he can, but it feels a little silly. Not sure what he'd be scared of. So instead, he might be looking to... I think that if he had a faction access card, he'd go to the Fremen site and take the Fremen Alliance. Draw that card. I think he doesn't have that card. In general, RJ, I think, has a good deck with very limited faction access. Except for the Spacing Guild. He's got a couple Spacing Guild cards. Really mulling this one over. I think trying to figure out whether his opponents can flex on his combat here or not. And what he needs to do about it, either to defend or where his other points are. Aside from that Fremen location, he's got really nowhere on the board that he's super interested in going. Maybe 2 moves up on the Emperor track to get him an alliance there, but it's unlikely. He's got a lot of coins, so I could see him going and doing the fake Mentati type thing. He probably doesn't have enough to buy into Spice Must Flow, otherwise he might be considering the High Council here. Doesn't have many spice options. Doesn't want to get more coins. I mean, he could go to the siege and blow up the wall, but I think ironically it doesn't actually do. It actually like works against him at this stage. He's just making someone else more powerful because he's the one who's going first this turn, which means next turn, less likely to be able to do things. So he says, you know what, an intrigue card at least will do something for me. I can figure out a plan from here. Maybe it helps me in a conflict. Maybe it helps me in some other way. Victory point. That felt like kind of just I'm not quite sure what to do with this type of play. Allen, however, does have the Fremen access and scores him a very essential victory point that I think might put him over the edge here. Although, you know, RJ is about to win a bunch of points in this conflict. Bunch of cards ripped for Allen. That must have been a. I see. That must have been all the people fighting. The Fremen people fighting card. The one that I was talking about where it's going to help him execute his plan. Yeah, he's drawn 3 cards. And he's trying to figure out which is the one that needs to put in his hand. Let me make sure that I remember and understand this card correctly. What's this card? This is a lost. No. Local. No. I don't remember what it's called. And I'm getting tired. Yeah, we'll leave it. We'll leave it be. Looks like he trashed a Spice Must Flow, which makes sense. Great card to get rid of. And here we'll get to see the Maker do a little bit of extra something. Cliff will go to his favorite spot, the Siege. Doesn't really need to put more troops in unless he thinks John's doing something, but doesn't really need to. Draw a card here, thanks to the slow burn of Lady Margot. And he'll get in the mix. Maybe he does think he can win this conflict. The interesting thing here is that if he does have a way of winning this conflict, I don't think that's going to help Cliff win the game. It'll definitely make RJ not win the game. And that's kind of an interesting dynamic in games like this where it's like, you know, being so far behind, you obviously still need to, you still want to try to play for the win. But like essentially, you know, you're cooked. And I think, you know, that there tends to be, there's a number of games that have this kind of what I think I would call like I don't know that it's a flaw, right? It just is a fact of the game that you get to the stage where you're kind of just like marching towards death and you're trying to figure out what else you can do. John here is trying to put a bunch of troops into play, but doesn't realize that this is not a dispatch troops thing as he heads up to do some sort of core nonsense. And he says, okay, maybe I don't want to do this whole plan. He realizes that the 4 spice costs here means that he won't be able to highliner next turn if he wants to highliner for combat. Really interesting that he was trying to push those 4 troops in, though, because second place here is a couple spice. And I don't think he was going to win unless he had some really spicy intrigue cards to come in over top, but yeah, he goes for it anyway. After some thinking, he realizes, got nothing else really to do. I kind of need to move up on the Emperor track. I mean, I guess the other option would be to go for Bene Gesserit intrigue card. Still do Highliner next turn. That would be maybe okay. That being said, Cliff's sitting right in front of him with access to it, so not a bad idea to just kind of get this out of the way and move on with your life. Not quite sure what the right call is for him. I guess I probably would move up the Bene Gesserit track. All right, time for a reveal. 17 for RJ. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So just one dagger there. Looks like he'll pick up the truth card just for the faction access. He does need to move up in Bene Gesserit next turn. Score an extra point there. And RJ's had a good game, but if it ends now, or the missing out the point on the Fremen Alliance, the not having the Bene Gesserit point, missing out on the Emperor track, those are really where his missed points are, because he really dominated the combats. He kind of boxed out Cliff. Alan really wasn't playing in that space of the world at all, and John just was having a hard time kind of keeping up with the same level of aggression that Cliff and RJ had throughout the course of the game, as he sort of like hybrided it across a couple things. Alan here heads out to the fake Mentat space, draws himself some cards, and looks like he might be able to fire off his combo again. It's not going to be as insane this time because the movement on the Spacing Guild and the Bene Gesserit functionally are useless at this stage. But if he can find some way to do some Emperor track stuff, that could be another victory point for him. I think we are going to a round 8, looks like. Oh no, there are 8 minutes left in this video, so we are definitely nearing the end here. So 1 point that he gets from a Spice Must Flow. It must be an intrigue card for the other one. I'm not quite seeing how else he would do it. I guess if he has a way to drop spies up in the Emperor, that's a movement on the track there, and then just one more movement, which again you could do with an intrigue card. So probably got some way to close it out here. If we did go to a turn 8, I'm not quite sure what RJ would be able to do. Honestly, he's a little low on everything except for coins. I mean, he's got the water, but both players in front of him are sitting there with a bunch of water. And that's, I think, going to get in his way. And ultimately, I think I think that Alan flipped into a game plan very clearly on turn 4. But ultimately, I think the fact that the other 3 players were in the same lane and bumping into each other, of course, slows them down. I mean, that's part of the tension and pressure of this game in particular, all worker placement games. But that certainly is working out very nicely for Alan. Where I think the card row needs to cooperate in one way or another. You need to have something in your deck that cares about drawing through your deck a whole lot. That looks like it is is that a cycle of a... Yeah, it looks like he cycled that intrigue card out. Although, that card seems like it could do a lot for him. Move down on an intrigue track, move up on another intrigue track. If he used his... if he's got the Spy Guild guy, then he can move down, the spacing track or the Bene Gesserit track, and then move back up them immediately. So he must not have that. I mean, I think him discarding that is a pretty clear indicator. I obviously am very biased now and know that the game is coming to an end, but I think it's a pretty clear indicator that we are coming to a foregone conclusion here. Cliff pushes in Worm for good measure. It looks like he blows up the wall along with it. He has the intrigue card that lets him spend some water to do that. Maybe he has a way of winning. It's got 14 here. 10, 13, 14, yeah. Looks like John manages to buy himself a Spice Must Flow with the council seat, so he's got himself some points. It's going to end at a respectable 6. Something let him go up the Emperor track. That was a thing that we talked about. It was an intrigue card, I know, but looks like he's doing his little spy removal thing. Oh, of course. And then, so since he's doing the spy removal thing, he'll move the spy up to the Emperor. Pretty clearly has the guild in hand. That's going to be a point for moving up Emperor, a point for Spice Must Flow, and that's going to be the game. There's the 9. And we see, as we come to an end here, curious to see how this fight ends, but at the same time, certainly Alan's going to walk away with the W here. And Cliff, I think, is going to walk away with it, probably last place. Even if he does manage to win this fight with a thing, I don't think there's going to be a way that he's going to kind of jump over and do some cute stuff. He does have a way to come over top, completely stuff RJ. That's pretty much going to end the game on the spot. I think if RJ had some intrigue card in hand that scored points, it'd still technically be plausible. Yeah. Cliff's got the money, so he's actually going to score 4 points here and an absolute massive swing. And then a 5th one for matching the card there. So he's going to shoot up to 7 points and show what exactly the strength of the sandworms are about. Why they're pretty scary by scoring 4 points out of nowhere. So Cliff being able to take that away from RJ, essentially just put the nail in the coffin. RJ, I think, had access. He was going to score 2 points, going up to 9. Maybe he has an intrigue card. It looks like he does have an intrigue card here to score another point. Although maybe he needed to pay for it with some resources. No, he finds some way. So he would have found a way up to 10. And then the question is just who had the most spice left over. So yeah, I think I actually heard RG talking about this game, and I think he said that he didn't have it even if he did win that fight against Cliff. So that's kind of how the breaks go. And of course, the combats in this game, they give big rewards, but they're also the most contestable of all of the locations in game. All right, well, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Hope you had a good time struggling through with me on this game, and see you next time.